Hey everybody, welcome to Bullion Banter. Today I have Colin and Brian from Mountain Bullion Entertainment or Mountain Bullion, and we're going to talk about a bunch of things. We're going to talk about Fort Knox. We're going to talk about silver and gold manipulation. We're going to talk about BRICS and China. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff. So, welcome, guys.
Thank you for
Hello,
having
thanks.
me.
Yeah, thanks for
Excuse
having us on tonight.
Yeah, no problem. Um, so Fort Knox. What do you guys think about Fort Knox and the U.S. Bullion Depository there and how it's never been actually audited, maybe like in 1950 or something, but
I know that Yosemite Sam burrowed into it at one time and got arrested. Um, that's about the extent of my knowledge of Fort Knox. In my mind, as like an American, it's been ingrained in me that it's like a synonym for something being really safe, right?
yeah.
Yes.
Um, so when I found out that it hasn't actually been fully audited, maybe ever, that was crazy. That was like a mind-blowing thing.
Yeah, you would think that, if we are holding the US like gold reserves there, and like I guess there's another because that's the it's the US Mint Police, I believe, that actually run the place. But yeah, it's just crazy to me like that it like the quote unquote audits that have been done before where they either I guess check the seals or whatever and they're not actually like those bars need to be taken like just show up at random, audit, go in all the different vaults, take a bunch of bars and like fire assay them to make sure they're legit. Because like how you
Well,
know
I mean, would you want to do it to all of them? And then just for our listeners who maybe haven't heard, Trump and Elon have showed interest in auditing Fort Knox, and it has been speculated by many people, some big voices out there on the internet, in the precious metals community, even that there's no gold in there. Um, I actually don't agree with them on in regards to that. I think that whenever the audit takes place, even if they have to move things around, kind of play a shell game, um, in order to make sure all of the gold or the vast majority of the gold is there, I think that's what we'll see if there's a public audit done.
Yeah.
It's, that the gold will be there. And the reason why I think that is it would be really risky for the US if the gold wasn't there.
Mhm.
Um,
Of
Saudi
course it
Arabia.
would. That's
yeah
yeah, that's why it was so scary to me when I first heard that. I was like, wait, what? Like all the leverage is just leveraged?
like it
Right, because
go on.
that makes us look really strong. I mean, we have the highest, um, gold reserves that are stated by any country in the world at 8,133 tons.
Hmm.
So allegedly, we got a whole lot of gold, and we've moved away from the petrodollar agreements. So for a long time, people would say, "Well, the dollar isn't backed by anything," and then someone else might say, "Well, it's backed by oil." And I mean, there's some truth to that because Saudi Arabia was only selling their oil for dollars. But that's gone now. So that did probably do some damage to our status as the reserve currency. And I think if the gold wasn't there, it would be seriously damaging to the United States.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think there's probably gold in there. I don't know if it is the thing that's weird is like a full the thing the bullion depository was built in 1936 just to lay it out like what happened you know in 1933 Roosevelt did the executive order. There was this mostly gold but also silver confiscation. That's a little different. I'm not going to get into the weeds on that, but confiscated, or most people actually voluntarily turned it in. That and they, you know, then after the federal government had all of this gold that was turned in, that was supposedly being quote unquote hoarded by the U.S. citizenry, um, they melted them down into 22 karat bars and put them in Fort Knox that they built in the bullion depository, which sits inside of a military base at Fort Knox. Um, and just the fact that they essentially took all the gold, scammed the American people, and then put it away and haven't even audited. That all is very shady to me. I
It
mean,
sounds like a movie.
yeah, it sounds
Right.
absurd, but that's and after World War II, we went to the Bretton Woods system where gold was the dollar was pegged to gold and other currencies were pegged to the dollar, and then we went off it temporarily, quote unquote, under Nixon, and I agree it would be really risky for them to not have any gold, but I could just the fact that it has not been audited seems very like something sounds weird there. They might even have more like they're hoarding gold that we took from various countries during World War II. Like who knows?
Sure, like, oh my God, there's more in there than they
Yeah,
say there is.
that could be possible. Like
Yeah,
because I'm thinking of like reason. There's two main motives why you would like not have like not audit the stuff. It's either they don't have as much as they say or they have more than they say. So it's got to be like one of those two. But, as far as the dollar, because it's, Brian, like you said, some people say it's backed by oil. I think at this point, the dollar is really backed up by, at the end of the day, a man pointing a rifle at you and saying, this is the money that you're using. I think that's really what's behind it. That we would use, and I think probably have used military force in the past to enforce our dollar, especially to buy oil. Like Libya switched to some gold stuff. We took out Gaddafi. Yeah, I think that's really what the dollar is at this point.
Well, and in regards to your point about the military, we do have the force to actually enable sanctions. Like I don't know if you guys ever saw that Dave Chappelle skit. It's really funny where he is pretending to be the president, and then he's kind of mocking another country, and he says, "Then why don't you sanction me? Why don't you sanction me with your army?" Oh, that's right, you don't have an army.
Yeah.
But we do have an extremely powerful military, and we are willing to throw our weight around with it.
Mhm.
And that could be part of the reason why you see the BRICS countries wanting to move to like a common settlement currency,
Mhm.
which we'll probably touch on a little later. But we froze what was it, $300 billion worth of Russian assets that were in Western central banks,
Yeah.
um, and so that's a pretty nasty thing we did. Um, but yeah, sanctions are on the table.
Yeah, I feel like we're in a very interesting place in history right now. Like when people look back at this time period, like look back at the 20s. Because China is, you know, Russia is they've kind of showed their hand, I guess, with Ukraine as far as what I mean, they do have nuclear weapons, but aside from that, like what their military might truly was is way less than I had expected. I think China, if we're talking about BRICS, there's Russia and China are like the two really big players. I know they're trying to get some other countries on board and have, but I feel like the People's Republic of China really wants to be the new world hegemon. Like they're seeing weakness in the West right now, and that we're pushing back a little bit with the trade war and the tariffs, but we're just in a weird state and with global affairs. It's interesting, and gold keeps going through the
I was
roof.
gonna say that's the whole reason I even started like agreeing with you in the first place. The first time you told me about it, I was like, you know what? He's right. He's totally right. Like, what's the only thing I could use anywhere in the world as money or like something that holds enough value that I can carry it around with me and gold and silver.
Yep. Yeah, that
Um,
is the
you
money.
know, I'm not going to claim to be a stock market expert or anything, but the market has been pretty wild the past couple of weeks. Really unpredictable. A lot of people have lost their ass. A lot of people have made a lot of money.
Hmm.
Um, the important thing to follow as that happens, though, is that like the US dollar is at one of the lowest. It's trading like the lowest against the euro that it has in quite a while.
Yeah.
At one point we were nearly equal,
Hmm.
and it's back up to like a 1.13, 1.15 euros or something.
Yeah.
We're at 1.02 for like a while.
Hmm.
So I don't know. If the money is just slowly becoming worthless, what are you supposed to buy with it? I guess on like a small scale, I understand how it might not like affect me on a daily basis, but it feels like it's wise enough, you know?
Hmm.
That's why I hope the gold's there.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope that even though it was like stolen
Great.
from the American people, like I hope it's there. I'd rather them steal it and actually have it for leverage than steal it and it's just gone. Like,
They should pay reparations.
yeah, yeah, dude.
Everybody gets some gold.
Could you guys imagine if we got gold stimulus? They sent like they minted some coins. Every American gets, a tenth of an ounce or a gram or something.
Oh, that would be exciting.
That'd be
Yeah,
a
Yeah,
and if it got
good,
stolen, it
that'd
would
be
be
a
like it
good
got gotten
program.
stolen twice.
yeah, that's yeah, because it should be dispersed, but I don't know. It's interesting to see with everything with the stock markets going up and down, like just the markets in general, inflation, like as far as the inflation bus is going, like that you
It
can
just
tap
keeps
the brakes
going.
on it, but it's going like our money is going to slowly become worthless and I don't know. I see the West kind of in a weird like weak spot where before like I would say maybe 6 months ago I didn't think I don't know I didn't think of BRICS as like something that could really challenge the Western like new world order system that we live under uh but now maybe like if they it all depends like we're in a weird state of like flux right now, globally. We got wars going on that we're funding and then not funding, and I think China is our biggest adversary is going to use this opportunity to do whatever they can. And I know we're in like a trade war with them now, at least as of time of recording, and it's I don't know. It's like and gold keeps going up and up. And the weird thing too is with like the silver price is definitely being suppressed because it the silver to gold ratio is like over 100 at time of recording or gold to silver, sorry. Um I feel like silver should be at least like $50 spot. I mean, what would you guys say? Like minimum what it should be right now if price suppression wasn't going on or this weird things with the commodities exchange or them not having the money or not having the actual silver
I
or
mean,
gold.
if there was no manipulation at all, I would say triple digits, over 100, at least in the low hundreds, I'm guessing, like
Yeah.
125, something like that.
Hmm. Yeah, I would probably say yeah, if there were no manipulation, it'd be probably like 150 an ounce, something like that. I'd have to do the math, but like at least like 20 to 1, something like that for the ratio. I
How
think
do
You
they
know what?
manipulate it?
You know what I did want to say real quick was I like the idea that maybe potentially there's more gold there. There has been a lot of gold flowing over from the LBMA, and some folks have wondered if any of that gold potentially could have been gold that was lent out by the U.S. Government, through the Treasury.
hmm
Um, and they're not supposed to take gold from Fort Knox to lend out. It's not supposed to be eligible for that. But that's basically what some folks are fearing. And so, you know, you never know. But if they hadn't lent out a large amount, and then some of this is filtering back to the U.S. government somehow, that would be pretty crazy. And because they are thinking about doing gold-backed bonds next year,
Yeah.
and so
Well, that's
That would be
interesting.
cool.
And I also heard about some kind of plan to use gold certificates to buy crypto, like for the
What?
government to do that. It, that sounds like an insane idea, but I wouldn't be surprised at this point.
Is that how they justify there not being enough there? They're like, oh, it's actually like in all these servers right here.
I don't know, but there was a well, it's with the current administration. They were floating the idea of having a strategic reserve where like there was like an act proposing using like the basically revaluing the current like the Fed's gold certificates and dedicating it as a funding source for purchasing Bitcoin. Um, like that came out of
Specifically
the White
Bitcoin.
House, like saying that basically, which
Just
sounds absolutely nutso to me. But if they're using gold certificates, they're not
yeah.
actually moving the physical gold. So it's all, maybe it is just a scam like everything else.
Who are they giving the gold certificates to?
I I don't know. Well, it would be
I
the
guess they would give it to the company, the or
Yeah,
or would it be the exchange maybe? Like, were they gonna hand them over to Coinbase?
I
I
think
feel
I
like
don't
the government should build their own thing to buy Bitcoin then or whatever.
yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
That feels to me like a crazy idea. I understand how it could be like, I don't know. I don't know, man.
Yeah, it's called the uh Optimized Investment Nationwide Bitcoin Act of 2025. Um, yeah, HR 2032, which was in March of 2025. It's spearheaded by some senator, and I don't think this has passed. I think this is just sitting in the Senate right now, but it would establish a strategic Bitcoin reserve that is federally managed to hold Bitcoin as a strategic asset, so, like akin to like our strategic uh, petroleum reserves. To
Okay.
and the bill would authorize the Treasury Department to acquire up to 1 million Bitcoin over 5 years with an annual target of 200,000 Bitcoin, which is a lot,
Yeah.
and like funded through the Treasury. It's I don't know, very bizarre. And they floated a bunch of different ideas as how to fund it, some through tariffs and some through, gold certificates, which
So,
I think the government investing a bunch of money into Bitcoin is kind of insane to me. Like it's literally nothing. Like I understand that it's just like a speculative asset. I can understand having a petroleum reserve. I can understand having a gold reserve, like physical things that are used for whatever, but just Bitcoin at the end of the day, all it does is use computing power and electricity. Like it's
I'm
like a,
not a
can't
fan
even like
either.
buy weed with it anymore without getting busted. So,
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna track everything you can do.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm honestly worried about, and I know we're kind of all over the place, but like do you guys see like a central bank digital, like this is a step towards a central bank digital currency that's like the new dollar, like the dollar, let's say the dollar gets inflated we're getting close to hyperinflation and they come out with, oh, well, we're going to make the new dollar. and you can trade in your old dollars for this new central bank digital currency where we can track everything you do. Because I could see that happening. Because people, if they're desperate enough and poor enough, and we get into like a depression type situation, which
Yeah.
we're already in a recession. They just keep saying that we're not, but like everybody on the ground can feel it. I'm sure everybody listening is having some money issue somewhere, unless you're lucky with your investments or whatever. Luckily I have
Or wise, technically.
but
If you're wise with your investments as well. But
yeah, yeah,
anyway,
yeah, but everything is costs more,
it feels like it's
Right.
been that way for the past 3 or 4 years. Like
yeah.
I've been feeling like everything costs more all the time.
Yeah, I agree. The inflation's been really noticeable lately, and I mean that's probably one of the biggest reasons that people can trust gold and silver to move with inflation. I mean, gold's been
Mhm.
doing really well. Um, they do put a lot of effort into manipulating the silver market.
Mm.
Um, so we haven't seen it quite break out yet, but I do think that that'll be coming. Um, but I agree with what you guys were talking about earlier that it's something that can be recognized anywhere on the planet. It's been money for so long. Everyone everywhere realizes there is value in gold and silver, a real tangible commodity. Um, yeah, I think the idea of a Bitcoin reserve is not a good one. Um,
Mm.
I think sometimes with the older folks will say,
Sure.
um, that are, pulling the strings of power in the government sometimes. I think a lot of them are really enamored with Bitcoin. And if you kind of step back and look at Bitcoin, it's like it transacts slow. Um,
Mhm.
it doesn't really have any function besides hoping to resell it at some point in the future
Yeah,
for a higher price than you bought it. I mean that's only Bitcoin's
correct.
only real function, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's a
Yeah.
purely speculative asset. And yeah, the transaction time, like it just happened to be like the first to market. Like I think of
Right.
yeah, I think of
They all
Bitcoin.
recognize its name.
Yes,
That's all
yes.
it is.
Yeah, yeah, really. It just is, yeah, like it's private fiat. Like, well, yeah, it's literally what it is. It's just
Yeah.
made up. I mean, yeah, you can say, oh, we're like uh, replicating scarcity through having to use cryptography or whatever.
Right. And like
So
burning it and it getting lost and all that.
yeah, yeah, like I'm sure there's so much on cold storage wallets that are just inaccessible, and
Hmm.
it's not the best. It's not good money. Like maybe there's people that are like super into it, but I don't know. I'd rather have the U.S. government be like, okay, we're gonna make gold backs, like
Yeah,
like
sure.
Oh,
that.
dude, I bet you're right, especially from back when Bitcoin was like really cheap. And that could be big chunks of Bitcoin too, because if you were buying Bitcoin for 72 cents a Bitcoin or something and you bought 2,000 of them,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then you literally lost that cold wallet because you figured, you lost whatever, 20 bucks and you didn't look for it that hard. And
Hmm.
that Bitcoin's just gone, man.
Yeah, it makes me wonder how much of the market cap is number one, just completely inaccessible, and number two, controlled by a small group of people that were just early into it, that
Hmm.
have who knows how much because it's I guess decentralized to the point where we don't know. So it seems insane for the government to be using the money for that when they could be doing literally anything else that
Yeah.
that would be like a net positive. But with gold, I silver being such a you can see the market trying to break out and then it gets tamped down. Like you see that over and over. We've been seeing that for so long. I think a big player in that is maybe its use in military industry. Uh, I don't know.
Right. Well, like why did they do it? I think is the kind of the end of the rabbit hole, I think all of us are wondering, like, why do they use so much pressure to keep the silver market down? And, for our listeners in regards to manipulation, this is something that's happened in 2020. JP Morgan had to pay a $920 million fine for manipulating the precious metals futures market. So they were using the paper market to manipulate the price.
Mhm.
And then again in 2023, two former JP Morgan precious metals traders were convicted of spoofing the precious metals market. And spoofing is when traders put in large buy or sell orders and then cancel them before they're executed.
Right.
So this gives the impression the market might be moving in a certain direction. Typically, it seems like they're trying to push it down. Um, and so, they'll see like a big sell order at like a cheap price for silver, and everyone will assume it's real, and then they'll panic and react to it and
Mhm.
start dropping their prices. And then these guys would pull that at the last second before it executed.
Yeah. I think that that is a cycle that's going to continue with the paper markets, and we're already seeing it right now and have been seeing it since I would say, 2020, 2021 really is when the premiums on silver started to go up and up and up. And they've come down a little bit, but then they've gone back up. It's like because the actual price is like really decoupling. Like, because if you can look at gold, where if you buy an ounce of physical gold, that's a really low premium. Like, it's maybe whatever, 4% or whatever. With
Pretty
silver,
low.
you buy an ounce, you're paying like a 37% premium or something. Depends where you buy, but at least 15% over spot, usually. Uh, I I'm kind of making up numbers right now. I don't have anything in front of me, but I think we're going to see that continue to decouple, which is probably a good thing, because the paper market is not reflective of what's going on. Like gold, yeah, the spot price, you can actually get an ounce of gold for pretty close to that price. Silver, I mean, good luck trying to get an ounce of silver at spot aside from, some of the deals that bullion dealers have. But right now it's
No, right. I know, and that's a good point. And none of this is financial advice, but
yeah.
if somebody, wanted to, they might want to consider going around to all the different dealers,
Mhm.
because all of them, I shouldn't say all of them, but a lot of them will have some amount of silver they'll sell at spot for new customers. So, if you're new to stacking, it might be worth it to go around to, three or four different sites and check them all out.
Oh yeah.
Maybe even six or seven. Because you can find some pretty good. It'll be like 5 ounces at spot or 10 ounces at spot in
Mhm.
some cases. But yeah, but then that's it. Then good luck finding it for spot outside of that.
Yeah.
That's how I got my first 5 ounce bar. And then after that, everything else has had a much higher premium on it. So you're exactly right about that.
Yeah. And it's interesting because back in like, 2015 or 2016, when I started stacking silver, it was not these crazy premiums were not the norm, which it's like they are the norm now. And I think it is just the market's reaction to the paper market's just not reflecting reality.
So how does that get fixed?
That's a good question. I don't because it's like, okay, all these huge financial institutions that, our whole system, since we got off of the gold standard or a bimetallic standard with gold and silver backing our money, like right now it's the dollar. So they're getting dollars by doing all this fraudulent stuff on the market. It's just, I think the people, or at least a certain percentage of the population, has to kind of wake up to what's going on and be like, oh, I'm not putting my money into this. Like, I'm just buying the real physical thing. That's or just more people that are currently not, just have their money in a savings account or
Oh,
something
that's a
like
nice
that.
coin.
Oh,
Uh,
thank you.
yeah, it is nice. The Chinor's coin. Um,
Yeah,
is that
Chinese panda.
Is that
Nice.
a quarter ounce or a half or
That's a tenth.
a tenth? Okay. Yeah, those are I don't have any of the Chinese stuff. But yeah,
Been wanting that.
it's just really
Well, I guess another potential, if like society wanted to do something about it, would be to get it pulled off the commodities exchange. They took
Sure.
potatoes off the commodities exchange in the past, so there's potential there for things to get removed from it.
Yeah.
Um, I have wondered if maybe it's something where if someone went and articulated a good enough argument explaining the short position. I saw a report a few months ago from Ed Stewart was saying the big banks were short like 180 days of silver production. So basically 6 months of silver production um,
Mhm.
globally. And so, I mean, we're talking about a serious short position. If they did lose control of the price,
Mhm.
and they all shorted it at like $30, and I would just imagine if it popped to 70. These banks would be so underwater, and then what they're probably going to turn around and ask for a bailout, and
Yeah.
then our government will probably do it, and it's just like enough with this.
Mhm.
I feel like maybe the best thing the public could do is a big push to get it pulled off the commodities exchange.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that sounds about right. Like I can see government regulators like the Securities and Exchange Commission and the FTC and stuff ensuring somehow behind the scenes, like colluding with these banking institutions to make sure they don't go underwater, so they don't need to be bailed out. But yeah, I think the government would do it, and then just overdose on quantitative easing again and again and again. I think that's their I mean, the fundamentals with gold and silver, I mean, anybody still watching to this point probably stacks, not safe to assume, or at least, interested in it in some way. It just doesn't look good to me, both from looking at the market and how there's suppression going on for whatever motive, which is probably profit, because when JP Morgan gets fined however much, they get fined. I'm just going to make up numbers. Yeah, I know you said something earlier, but Deutsche Bank,
960 billion. Is that what it
yeah,
was? 960 million or
Uh,
960?
very close, 930 million.
Okay,
yeah, like
930 million.
for the fraud that they committed, I'm sure they made more than that fine.
Oh, I mean, if the market got out of their control too much, I mean, they would be asking for a lot of money. We'd have to crunch some numbers on it, but I would be in the billions. I'm
Yeah,
pretty
That's
no,
certain.
crazy. Who
yeah,
would the money go to? Like,
well,
like
it would be,
let's say they owed the money, right? Like, where
yeah.
does it end up?
Well, I guess if they don't, they would have to settle contracts in cash. They would need to get like bailed out. Like, so it's this whole web of like BS. Like,
Yeah,
it's like,
they can pay them out in cash. They have that something in their writing. But yeah, they could be very, very underwater.
yeah, it seems like the silver market has been on like a knife edge since like 2021 when that like initial silver squeeze happened and it was kind of came more into the public consciousness a little bit. Um, it seems like that's when the premiums went up, spot price went up as well. Um, but it seems like a very dangerous game they're playing where it's like take a wrong turn and JP Morgan needs a bailout. Deutsche Bank,
Absolutely.
it's
And it's ridiculous too, because if you look at it, so the last 4 years we've had a silver deficit. The industry, the various industries require a lot of silver, and I know the example's been used a lot, but They think that if the solar industry kept consuming silver at the pace that it does, that industry alone would consume 98% of the supply by the year 2050.
Mhm. Yeah,
Oh my God.
that's yeah, and there it's yeah, used in so much stuff, which is why I think it could potentially be like the elephant in the room might be the military or the military industrial complex's use of silver because for batteries for torpedoes they use silver based battery systems. Um, just so much stuff that is probably in some black budget somewhere.
So they want the price low
Yeah, I mean, if you, I'm
so
trying
they
to
don't
think.
have to pay as much for it. Is that what it
Yeah,
is?
I think so. I think that is overall the motive, and it synergizes. There's like people that, want the price to be low for industrial use, whomever they may be, a bunch of different parties, both uh, both public and private. And then it synergizes with these large banking institutions being like, oh, well, we have the leverage to rig the market in this way where we can, have this short position, then push the price down artificially and just keep raking in cash and moving around these huge amounts of silver, in theory on paper.
Like day trading
Yes.
silver futures and
Yes.
shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then it's like, most of and then with the commodities exchanges, whether it's the New York COMEX or the LBMA, and it's weird with like the Shanghai exchange where the silver price is always higher than it is if you look at Western sources, which is just interesting. Every time I look, the spot price from the Shanghai exchange is, or the Hong Kong exchange, either of those, Shanghai especially. The silver price in U.S. dollars, it's like $2 higher or something sometimes, which is interesting, to say the least. But yeah, it seems like it's just this whole web that is gets to the point where it's so confusing, where it's hard to even know where to start to attack it at. Which,
So, would that explain why, I guess technically it couldn't be this high, but is the price of gold just not suppressed because it's not used in as much industrial stuff, at least not to the level that silver is?
I think that there's a big impression into that, and I think that your conclusion about the price is right, and great points by both of you guys. Um, the military industrial complex probably does want the prices down, and my guess is that it's at the producer level. So probably not necessarily the U.S. military itself, but the people that get their contracts. So McDonnell Douglas.
yeah,
Um, if they're making some of the equipment that needs silver, they might be interested in having that price lower. And then if, they're such a big company, they can talk with, different people, pull some strings. Um, it does seem like it's all kind of interconnected. Now that arbitrage that you were just talking about, Gigi, is interesting because um, there has been concern that really big players, because little players, of course, like shipping would mess it up, but really big players might try and play that arbitrage where they just pick up some silver from
mhm,
the Western hemisphere and go drop it in China. And
yeah,
if they're making a few bucks on every ounce and they're dropping off enough of it, they'll actually make a substantial amount of money.
mhm,
Uh, that's concerning. It's concerning that a lot of the silver might be getting sent over there. And if you were looking at it from a defense perspective, for the United States, we want that silver within our jurisdiction.
mhm,
We want that to be here. That's how I honestly feel. And
yeah,
so I feel like the US military themselves is kind of asleep at the wheel because if all of this silver potentially is getting sent over there, I mean, it would be better off if it was here, if we were the ones paying more. So it was beneficial for the arbitrage trade to send the silver our direction. You know what I mean?
yeah. And the U.S., I mean, we must have, because As far as a strategic reserve of silver, um, I'm looking something up. So we stopped maintaining a strategic silver reserve in 2002. So
Okay.
before, like they, hmm,
They had a big one at one point.
yeah. I mean, all the
Uh,
way back. So in 2002, the last of our stockpile was sold by the Defense National Stockpile Center. This was the official end of silver as a strategic metal under U.S. government policy in 2002. So it'd be under George Bush. And they said like, oh, well, it's no longer used in coinage. The cost to store and manage isn't justifiable. They said that I'm looking into it now. They believe that silver could always just be sourced from the private market, so we don't need a strategic reserve of it, is kind of the thought process from what I
that's quite
got
an
here.
assumption. And,
Yeah.
especially at current prices, because I think a lot of stackers are getting really fed up at this point and are really going to dig their heels in.
Hmm.
I am going to be looking for triple digits at this point.
Oh yeah.
They're gonna be waiting for a long time unless something catastrophic happens on my end. But they're gonna be waiting a long time to get access,
Well, yeah,
at least to what I have.
it's interesting that that happened in 2002, where, silver was, $4.50 an ounce. And if you look at the charts after that, it just goes up and up and up and up, it's up to 13. Then there's a crash. When the housing market collapse, goes down to 10 or whatever. Then it shoots up to, I think, in intraday trading, yeah, at least something like, oh, $40 an ounce at some point, comes back down, then comes back up. It has these spikes because the market cap is small enough where, like the Hunt brothers were able to squeeze the market. Like, if Elon Musk wanted to uh, just buy all the silver he could, that would cause a crisis with the actual physical supply. And yeah, I guess if I do worry that too much of our silver is going to end up in China under um, Communist Party jurisdiction, and they are, not the friends of us. They are our like biggest adversary on the global stage. Um, I don't know. But I think you're right as far as stackers that are gonna just not sell unless things financially, like, sell off a little bit here and there to pay bills. But other than that, I know my mindset right now is like, I am not selling unless I absolutely have to. I'm waiting for, like you said, like
I'm with you.
I'm waiting for silver to shoot up to something crazy. And it's not even crazy. It's just what it should be at. It's just that it's suppressed, which is, I feel like this is such a big web of scams and BS that is allowed by the fact that our money is fiat in the first place, and that so much capital is being soaked up into things like Bitcoin or other crypto, like the meme coins that have billions and billions of dollars. And if it were not for that, it would be going to commodities, I would think.
That
I
would be a better use, wouldn't it? I think.
Well, I mean, think
I
about,
believe so.
yeah, well, just from the perspective of whether it's retail investors, whether it's large bank institutions, hedge funds, whatever, it seems like it'd be better to put it into silver or gold, safe haven assets. But a lot of it's being dumped into the speculative assets that kind of were invented. Seem, crypto was kind of invented as a thing. Bitcoin was like first to market. Now it's got, you know, almost a $2 trillion market cap, and it does nothing really aside from speculation. Um, so
So
yeah,
how, like, okay, 50 years from now,
Ye-
when we're old and whatever, and people are on TV talking about we want to see the Bitcoin audit, right?
yeah,
How are they going to pull that one off?
Right. That's a good point.
yeah. It's
Well,
so weird because I remember when Bitcoin first started, it was like, some people were really into it. Most people used it to buy drugs, which
Yup.
yeah, that was like the main use for it, like the main use case. Which is now it's like other weird things I don't even know, but it's just so bizarre that
Well,
it started out as like, oh, this is going to be a decentralized currency and blah blah blah, and it was in theory supposed to be quote unquote digital gold, even though it has no value, but the consensus, like all the hype behind it was very um libertarian, I suppose. But now everybody's like,
it's
oh
a great
no,
idea.
yeah, but
Yeah, it's
now
a nice idea.
everybody wants it's like Bitcoin ETFs and oh the government to buy a bunch of Bitcoin, and it's like the script completely flipped on it.
It's interesting because it did sound really good in the beginning. Um, but then it turned out that they can track every place any of these cryptocurrencies go on the blockchain. They can track all of it from wallet to wallet. And so if they're looking for someone, I mean, they can end up in a situation where that Crocodile of Wall Street girl was like a wallet that they think she has access to, but she never took the Bitcoin out. Like, so you can get to these like standoffs
Yeah.
where like someone knows they're hot, and then the government keeps watching that wallet, and then the Bitcoin's probably just gonna be stuck there forever now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
oh my
it's
God.
it's just a very
right.
it's just a very bizarre concept that it seems like crypto kind of snuck into the global financial system in a weird way. And I think there's a lot to that because it seems, we can talk about silver and gold, which obviously that's like this whole channel. Um, if you're watching, by the way, you should like and subscribe. I always forget to mention that in the beginning. But anyway, it seems like I often come back and start talking about crypto because I really think it's like a bizarre thing that crept into the market where it's
Well, and
so
it's
much money is parked in that now, or so much capital is
it's
parked.
pulling attention away from the precious
Ye-
metals, right?
Mhm.
The thing is with the cryptos, just like a fiat currency, that's not backed by a tangible commodity like gold or silver, it could potentially go to zero. The downside risk with the cryptos is immense, when comparing them with the precious metals, and especially for how undervalued silver is right now, we're talking very little downside risk, big time upside potential.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that, a big part of what's going on with our society today is because the inflation is bad. Everyone's always trying to figure out, well, what can I do with these dollars to beat inflation?
Mhm.
And so they're just almost out of necessity, trying to figure out, how to like hit it big with something. Like, hey, maybe I could park some of this in a crypto and it'll go big. And then the thing
Yeah.
is they almost seem to be forgetting, like, okay, if you bought Bitcoin when it was low, and if you were smart and offloaded it when it was over $100,000, well, then you take that money and park it into the physical metals. So, because you were just kind of gambling, you went into a speculative asset, and if you do good with that, then you take it and you put it in a wealth preservation asset, gold or silver.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that maybe. a lot of the reason why, well, there's many reasons why the gold price it keeps going up and up and up, keeps hitting all-time high. Probably by the time this video hits YouTube, because right now it's, at near a nominal all-time high. Gold is at, let's see, $3,280.50 right now. You know, looking at the chart, it just keeps going up and up and up and up. And I think maybe a good amount of that capital is people making, dollars with these speculative assets and being smart about it and parking it in gold. I mean, I have a small position in crypto, and I am very seriously thinking about liquidating like all of it and putting it into silver and gold. I gotta think about it, but I think potentially a lot of people, because I mean, just recently, some tariffs were announced, and then the whole market fell. The stock market was down, all the index funds were down. Bitcoin dropped in value by 20% or 10%, it was something like that. Gold held strong. Silver dipped down a little bit and came back up. But it's just it's like the stock market's so volatile right now, and the crypto market's so volatile. It just it really makes sense that people would be turning to gold, which is probably why the price continues to increase. And then people see it's like that FOMO, more people pile on. Except, at the end of the day, gold is actually a great place to have your capital in. Um, Silver too. I just think silver's so undervalued that I just want to keep stacking and holding, aside from the stuff that I make and sell. Um, but yeah, it's just looking at our economy and like the contraction in the M2 money supply. Like I just don't know how this gets fixed. Like as we go forward over the next 10 years, with inflation is going to keep going up. And if we do go into, like, let's say, the government and the Federal Reserve, whatever, actually does get into a deflationary state, that's going to cause all sorts of its own problems because of how our financial system is set up in the first place. So I don't know. I try not to be too much of a doomer about where the economy is headed, but
It does kind of feel like we're in that weird like toilet phase where it starts to speed up at the end.
yeah.
Like it just keeps going in circles because they're like, oh my God, nobody has any money. Let's print some.
Hmm.
And then by some, I mean $2 trillion.
Yeah.
And then and then, oh my God, everything's getting so much more expensive. We gotta make more money and give it to all these businesses that are so big that they prop up the entire economy.
Hmm.
Uh, okay, and then everything gets more expensive again, and then we keep running back to the same exact spot. It's been happening like that for like almost 5 years now. It feels like.
Yeah. Yeah, I think and
It's an awful doom loop.
yeah, and I think like going back to the BRICS stuff, like, countries like China or even India. India's kind of on and off with us. Russia, they're in a war right now, but I think
What's
China
Brazil doing
especially,
in there in
I'd say
BRICS? Brazil doesn't seem like they're aligned with
no,
Iran and Russia and
no,
China and
it's
stuff.
that's why when I
Yeah,
think,
they don't have very strong like ties culturally. And then in some cases, I mean, China and India, they don't seem to trust each other too much.
yeah, and China and India have like territorial disputes, which is why BRICS, when I think of BRICS, I weird things like Brazil is like U.S. aligned at the end of the day. Like we can go back to the Monroe Doctrine. Like we are going to ensure the United States is going to ensure that Brazil is kind of on our side. It seems like in BRICS, the whole concept was invented by Westerners anyway.
Sure,
Um,
as like a speculative market.
yeah, yeah. So when I think of BRICS, like I'm more thinking of like China, I guess, and China's like Belt and Road and that initiative and them kind of colonizing Africa and East Africa. Um, I see it mainly being a China and Russia thing, even though China and Russia don't trust each other either. It's like the enemy of my enemy is my okay, we'll get along for a
Frenemy.
bit and look at how bad the West is doing economically. Let's let's do whatever, try and figure something out here. And I think
Yeah.
countries like Brazil or like Saudi Arabia is invited to join BRICS. And I think Angola, if I might be mistaken on that. Other BRICS partners like
Egypt.
Kazakhstan, yeah, Egypt, Iran. Like I think it's kind of like they're throwing all these countries in a basket, and like these countries are like, oh, we're invited to this thing. Yeah, sure. But like, yeah, yeah, sure, we'll check it out. Like that's kind of what it seems like.
Yeah, and I mean it's convenient for now as long as, things stay as they are, so to speak. And of course the common settlement currency they've been working on isn't in play yet.
Mhm,
But like you were talking about Russia and China, they're a great example. They've been doing all of their trade. Of course we have sanctions on Russia through their domestic currencies.
mhm,
So this is completely outside of the US dollar. And I'm sure some of these other countries have been doing the same thing. And what I think the net effect of this has been, it's estimated that the amount of dollars share of global reserves, so like in all the different global central banks, has dropped from 71% in 1999 to 59% um, earlier in 2025 is when the article I read that in was written. So we can kind of see where it's going.
mhm.
Um, we're still kind of hanging strong right now at 59%, but if this trend continues, so we're off the petrodollar agreement. Um, uh, Central banks are dumping us as a reserve asset that are US dollars.
Mhm.
Yeah, we better hope that gold's in Fort Knox.
Yeah.
Dude, I
Well,
know, right?
because well, what BRICS really seems like is it's like an it's like an incoherent, like anti-American, anti-West system, like BRICS pay and all of that stuff. I feel like they are kind of setting this up where it's like, okay, we're at least like some of the countries, Brazil's probably going to end up siding with us, but they're playing both sides. Same thing with India. But as far as like, China and Russia and Iran and the UAE are probably pretty firmly anti-American. At least for sure, Russia and China are, and Iran. Um, that they're waiting for. I could see them setting this up, waiting for the U.S. and especially because if the U.S. collapses, like if our economy really takes a dump, Great Depression style, which is not out of the question at all, then it's like, okay, now this is our time to actually make something coherent. It'll be in a different form, but we have some of the infrastructure set up for it already.
Are
I
they
think
planning to
that's
do that
what
thing
it
you were
is.
talking about earlier with like a centralized digital currency?
Yeah.
What are they going to call it?
They call it like a CBDC, a central bank digital currency.
No,
That
I meant what are they going to call the BRICS dollars?
oh, I'm not sure. Brian, didn't they call it the unit? Isn't that what they were calling
Yes, I believe that's correct.
the BRICS currency? but it's
Unit?
yeah, I believe that's unit. Yeah, it's a proposed, okay, so it's a digital currency that is potentially gold backed, but they haven't, it's not like a real thing yet. It's like a
Mhm.
proposed concept. They call it the unit as a decentralized digital currency backed by like a basket of both BRICS currencies. So it'd be like RMB from China or rubles from Russia and gold
Modern.
and potentially other commodities in a basket to back it as an alternative to the US dollar for international trade and settlements. But it's all in theory, like it hasn't been actually made yet, to the
Hmm.
best of my knowledge. But it seems like they're kind of setting up all of this ideas and infrastructure. So it's like, okay, when the West is weak, we're gonna jump on this, and it'll take a different form, probably with China in the lead, because I mean, really, Chinese state media says pretty clearly that they want to kind of rule the world, and they're
I
building
thought,
sphere of influence.
don't you think China would be a little offended by the implication that they're an emerging nation? Been around for like almost longer than anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have an ancient culture.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, really old.
Yeah. Well,
It, their current communist government, though, I think that they miscalculated this tariff situation because they don't have another good market set up and a lot of their economy. And I mean, we're on the other end of this. We're not really set up for it either. We're the consumer end of this and they're the producer end of this. But where are they going to sell all their stuff? And so a bunch of their
Yeah.
factories, I'm sure, are in panic mode right now.
yeah.
Um, and all those jobs, all those employees, even though they're paid incredibly depressed wages. Um, and then here we are on the other side of it, not ready to produce anything.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how all this plays out.
Yeah, because it's interesting with the People's Republic of China, like because it's a quote unquote communist government, but really what it is in practice is close, I would say is closer to like fascism. Like it's pretty close to like a national socialist type government. I don't know if you guys would agree with me there, like what it actually is almost
Like,
like
would a communist government engage in like international market stuff like that?
I mean, it depends what kind of, well, I guess like a Marxist Leninist, but they're not really Marxist Leninists. It came from like Maoism, and then it became, uh, communism with Chinese characteristics or whatever they call it. But
Does
I
that
think,
just mean that they still want to, like, obviously, they need money and stuff, but like China speculates a lot with like a ton of Bitcoin and and the Chinese panda coin.
yeah.
And,
Exactly.
and like you said, making 100 billion little plastic toys to
Hmm.
sell to us and
Yeah,
such a reliable, oh man, that side's cool.
yeah. People's
But like,
Bank of China.
they're just really
It is a
speculative.
it is a cool coin.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
So I guess the difference would be that they just whatever it takes. If we
Yeah,
have to do
well,
this to
the
get Great
I
China,
the interesting thing, so China, with this trade war, they have what is an advantage in the short term, I would say, is because like they can direct people, like they have built these huge cities out of garbage materials that nobody lives in just to have economic activity. They also can use slave labor, which in the long run hurts you, but in the short term, it's free slave labor.
sure.
It is
I
what it
think
is.
the some of the Uyghurs are used as slave labor,
Oh
and
yeah,
then a lot of the people they're paying, quote unquote. I mean, these people are not getting paid enough to like buy adequate housing in China.
No.
they're living in squalor. And it's a it's kind of a sad situation.
Yeah, well, the thing that worries me also about China is a lot of high-ranking Communist Party officials own a bunch of property in the West. Like I know in Canada, there's like a
Sure.
serious problem as far as like, and I think in Australia too, probably in the
All over
US.
where I live.
Yeah,
Um,
it's really
yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I didn't know that.
You've seen some
yeah,
Chinese investors around there?
yeah. There's a lot of like 2008 was the first wave, and I didn't live here yet, but a lot of those got bought by Chinese investors, and then it happened again, like maybe 7 or 8 years ago, where a bunch of people were trying to sell their house and nobody would buy it around here. And then another like 50% of them are like Chinese investment companies with like a satellite renter and like, or satellite, landlord and like all that stuff. And then the other half are Berkshire Hathaway.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
it's
weird to me that people who don't live in the country are allowed to own and rent property to people here.
yeah. Well, it's there.
What do you guys think about that? Do you think that um if someone um because and I guess if you could figure out a way to describe it just right, but I feel like if somebody was coming from Canada, no big deal. But if you're coming from a communist country that potentially we could end up on a war footing with, and I'm talking a kinetic war if things got bad enough,
Yeah,
I also feel awkward about them being able to invest here.
yeah. It's like they're taking advantage of our um like Western liberal system where it's like, oh, anybody can, buy stuff. Our markets are in theory are relatively free, whatever. But I mean, when it comes down to that, I don't think I mean like they are our adversary. It is very clear if you look at what the geopolitical situation. It's like looking at China right now almost feels like looking at Germany or Japan in, the early 1930s or mid 1930s. Like that, it's very creepy, I guess. Like they're and while we're distracted in Europe, I mean, with the Trump administration, who knows what's going on, but like, when are they going to make their move to, retake or whatever, take Taiwan
Taiwan.
or, and then what is our reaction to that going to be? Um,
Exactly.
and
Yeah,
then they
what are we gonna
own,
do?
they own, and this is the thing, and I guess we're going down this China. I wish I could do a good Trump voice, like, gotta have my China, but I wish I could. I wish. Can any of you guys do a good Trump impression?
Uh, I don't want to claim to be able to do a good one. No.
Yeah, I can't. I can't do a good one.
I
But
won't be able to do a good one
Yeah.
either.
yeah. But anyway, everybody knows that
How
China,
does
China, China. But
does China have a bunch of gold and silver?
yes, yes. Like China has. Let's see.
They're the second largest silver producer in the world behind Mexico,
Mhm.
and
Okay.
they have been accumulating a lot. And what they say is recently they've been going directly to the silver miners in South America and buying the silver while it's still in doré form. Um, these are just big bars that aren't well refined yet, but just they got it isolated and melted into a big hunk, basically, if you could imagine in that form, but it's not like
Mm-hmm.
0.999 pure yet or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Yeah. And they do have a big gold reserve. And with China, I do not trust any numbers that come out of them because they're probably just lying. Because why would you not deceive your
You got
enemy? You know?
you got to throw them a bone once in a while, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, like I honestly think they probably have more gold than they say that they do. It like it always seems to be either one or the other. It's like, oh, we want to use this as leverage in the future, so we're gonna kind of not tell about it. Because if you look at it, it's like almost the same on a macro level as it is on a micro level. Like imagine China as a person stacking silver and gold. Like there are the advantages of like, yeah, nobody knows how much you have except you. you can move it around physically. Like that all applies to nation states as well. China is building up their military, which also, Western countries are, especially in Eastern Europe, Poland, South Korea. They're buying a lot from South Korea. And all of that military equipment needs a lot of silver, so that's moving around. But China's naval stuff that they're doing, I don't think they can build up anything to rival the U.S. Navy because our Navy is insanely large and powerful. We're like the only country that can power project, which is why I really feel like, and I know maybe I'll put conspiracy in the title because I know I'm kind of going on schizo rants here. Uh, yeah, your title, Silver, Gold, China, Schizo Rant. Um, that might be a decent title. I don't know. Um, man, I like forgot what I said. Oh yeah,
I
but
would,
no, at the point where they're like waiting for the West or the US specifically, because the US markets collapse, the house of cards kind of comes down for the whole West. So China's going to use that to, okay, they're busy doing whatever. Let's invade Taiwan. China has all these spies on, like, nobody's too small for them. Like, there's mayors of like random cities in like California or Minnesota or wherever that have like a population of 30,000 people where they get caught having like a Chinese spy mistress. It's like, what are they doing? If they're going after all of these people, like they must have our government infiltrated pretty decently.
Let me
And
ask you one more question.
yeah. I know we've been going for like over an hour now,
In
but
the event that the economy does take like a big dip, which it already, between the inflation of the dollar and this percentage lost, it's been considerable.
Mhm,
Um, Granted, it's still like not as, it's just like we lost a few years, but anyway.
mhm,
And then China starts like taking those boats with the big long docks out in front of them and landing in Taiwan.
mhm.
What do you do with the gold? Do you sell the gold? Do you keep the gold and the silver? Like, do you sell it and like, will it spike and you sell it, or will it spike and you give it to the government to make bombs?
Well,
well, you know what I would say in
like if
regards
we
to
got in
the
like, are
amount of
you?
gold.
Well, I'm sorry, just
Mhm.
before we
Sorry.
go forward, just to clarify, do you mean like if the US got in like a kinetic war with China? Like we
Um,
actually
Yeah,
at
like if they
war?
were attacking Taiwan.
Yeah, like
yeah,
if we got
basically.
in, I could see the markets dipping at first, but then the government, since that's their whole plan, is to pull from the private market, I would assume the prices, at least for silver and gold would probably go up because gold always goes up with instability, and that would be like a huge thing. Um, I think most people would probably hold their stuff and just ride it on ideally until the price goes up. But the US could, they have confiscated silver before, and that is the current doctrine, I guess, from the government is for, oh yeah, if we need silver, we'll get it from the private market. So it would probably, I don't know, they might take it from literally from the commodities exchanges if it went that far to make torpedoes and missiles and all of this stuff. If we geared up
Yeah.
on a wartime economy, which
Does
would
that
be,
drive the price up because there's less of it?
I would assume so. I mean, it would be more needed.
Yeah,
Like it's,
one would assume.
yeah.
Yeah, in regards to how much gold China has in 2024, they had reported that they had 2,264,000 tons. So they got a lot.
Mhm.
Um,
1,000,000 tons.
it now I do also think it's possible they might have more than they're claiming. It's hard to say. They have written into their laws if they're using um, any silver, and I believe gold for military applications, they don't have to. report it. And also, their army can take silver directly from the miners that operate in China.
Mhm.
So sometimes, so it would be very hard to get an idea of how much is going into weaponry for their country. For us on our end, if they attack Taiwan, I don't think we would see much happen with the precious metals right away. I think there might be some panic buying.
Mhm.
Um, in regards to, what stage this is at, I think also would affect it a lot. Because if it happened tomorrow, we could be in some big trouble in regards to our supply chains. Um, because of the USMCA, it's the US Canada Mexico trade agreement. All the tariffs, they're any goods that are eligible for USMCA status, they're not going to be affected by the tariffs. They're also not taxed. So
Mhm.
we're talking plastics, rubbers, produce, like really all the like really basic stuff.
Yeah.
And, and so China, if we ended up in a situation where this lasts for a long time, a lot of that production will end up getting replaced by Mexico, is my guess. Mexico really could ramp up their production capacity, and they could also get away with importing a lot of stuff, even if negotiations fail. I don't think they're going to fail with Mexico. I think that we're going to come to an agreement.
Yeah.
Will be the end result. And but even if they fail and they have like a 10% tariff, they're still going to be able to ship us a certain amount of things that won't be affected by the tariff.
Yeah.
Um, so they're in a great position to take over as the producer, and of course, we could start producing some stuff here. Um, for for a war with China, would they need to start confiscating silver? Maybe if it got really long and drug out. If it, depending
Mhm.
on what happened, maybe not.
Yeah, I guess
Uh,
it depends on the scale. Because, yeah, right now we have, stockpiles of missile systems, torpedoes. Like a lot of it would be air and naval, I would assume. Getting into a ground war with China sounds just like a bad idea, especially when we can park F-35s and just drop JDAMs on them. But um,
Um,
we'll see. It's I don't know. I think
why, why would I guess the question is ultimately for me, like, in order for them to confiscate it from everybody, it
mm,
would be like a crazy, if- what seems like to me a crazy thing. But already once people like willingly gave it up,
yeah.
um, um, why is the trust there? Like to me, it seems like if they and they're kind of saying it too, where they're just like, oh, we'll just get it from people,
Yeah.
basically. Like, that's a little disconcerting. I don't know.
Yeah, well,
right.
you know,
Well, what I think is that they would go with what there's precedence for, and what their precedence is for like investment grade bars. Um,
Yeah.
there's no precedence for coins. And so my guess is that they would go into like the really big juicy stockpiles,
mhm.
maybe the COMEX like you had brought up, or maybe they would go into just some of the bigger vaults where a bunch of people's private bars are and just rifle through all that stuff and just take it. And then they
Yeah.
would send out checks. So my
Yeah.
guess is they'll actually pay the people whatever they saw as the fair market.
Well, what I see as probably happening would be um like if they would offer like more
Yeah.
money. Did we
Right,
just
more money, more
like
exposure too, because imagine if um they were like literally sending a physical truck to each person's house, and the
yeah.
criminals in the area figured out what that truck was doing, and they're like, "You're telling me that truck's full of gold and silver? Where's my assault rifle?
There's a
Yeah.
really old
Call
movie.
your boys, like let's go get
Yeah.
Yeah,
this thing."
Yeah.
dude.
Um,
There's a really old movie that came out in like the late 30s about mobsters who rob a truck on the way to Fort Knox.
oh, interesting.
Yeah, that's a good one.
They
Yeah.
got their Tommy guns.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
No, well, I think stackers too generally have like firearms as well. Like I think we would would actually kind of benefit most from that because I think the government would basically say to the large banking institutions, like, hey, let's just say, for example, at the time, spot price is $35. So we're going to need physical delivery, but we'll pay you 45 and we'll just print a bunch of money to make up for that difference and get it all from those like big vaults. And like those bankers, like they only care really about making dollars. So obviously they're going to take the deal. Yeah, and it's just going to inflate the economy. But I think that would be like if I were the government and it's like, oh, we need silver. Oh, let's just print more money, offer them a little bit more than what it's, the market value, and they're going to sell it to us because they just care about pleasing their
Money.
board members. They have a
I
fiduciary responsibility. Of course, they're going to take that deal. And then, like, honestly, we as like individuals holding it is the price, it will probably tank at first and then go shoot up.
I mean, what I think would happen is because the thing is no more silver is going to come onto the market without um price discovery. So what's going on right now is about 70% of the silver that comes to market is a byproduct of other metals they're mining, copper,
Mhm.
gold, or something else. And it's just if
Yeah.
they come across silver, then they'll sell it as well. Only 30% of the mines out there um, that produce silver are silver primary mines.
Mm.
And so it's already very hard for miners to etch out a profit with silver. And the best way for them to get access to a lot of silver, let's say if they did need to build a lot of stuff, if they were like, we need 100,000 tomahawks or, whatever kind of stuff they come up with.
Mhm.
Um, and, that's, whatever they come up with, 5 million ounces of silver, um, and then there, and let's just say we need that year after year. And then, um, we're also trying to let the US industry still exist. So the electric cars are going to need it. The solar panel companies are going to need it. Like, oh, there's just straight up not enough silver coming onto the market for this to be sustainable. Like we could rob the public once and that might last but what there, this is what I honestly think is the smarter people will end up concluding like we have to let the price run or else the producers aren't going to start producing anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think they would have to let the price run for a while. They might, out of panic, do the confiscation thing right away, but at some point they're going to figure out, wait, we're not going to be able to sustain the pace of weapons building that we want with the current market conditions. What will cause the miners to start turning the mines on again and more recycling to start taking place would be just straight up the price going up.
Yeah.
And then, you could even imagine a situation in the future. And I think at some point, well, humanity will see it. I don't know if it'll be in our lifetimes, but where um, people will see value in taking their old cell phone and turning it in, even though there's only like a third of a gram of silver in it or something, because it'll be that big of a difference that you'll bother to stick it in your pocket and drop it off at the recycling thing on your way to the post office or whatever.
Right. Yeah, and people have there's a whole industry built on recycling old electronics.
Yeah.
There's definitely enough. It adds up over time, right? And then if it's worth triple what it is now, then it would be start being worth it to the average person to take care of their electronic waste.
Mhm. Yeah.
Right.
They,
Not
so
just throw it in the garbage.
yeah,
Mm,
silver is a very interesting case because it's like it is, which is why I guess, bigger into silver than gold because it's used in like everything, like all these electronics. It's used in aerospace, it's used in military, it's used in so much stuff. It's like the second, it's like after petroleum, it's like the most useful thing there is. Pretty much, or like maybe petroleum, iron, then like silver for modern society to function. But it's also money. It's in a very interesting spot where there's really nothing else like it. Um,
yeah.
yet the price is being suppressed. So it's like we're getting a good deal every time we buy it, even with these premiums. I think that's a good deal. So, and like if something like did the crazy did happen with China, which I think is coming down the road, unless the government there gets like overthrown or there's a coup or who knows,
Good old
crazy,
fashioned coup.
yeah, like crazy stuff can happen, obviously, but I just see, I just don't see a world where silver does not spike up in a crazy way within the next like 20 years. Like it's got to happen. It's like a spring that's being held down by both market manipulation and, you know, geopolitical factors and industrial use and all these different things. And once it gets to a certain point, it's like that the things holding it down are going to get to the point where the spring shoots up, if that analogy even makes sense.
Absolutely. It has to happen at some point.
Yeah, like I don't see how they can keep the price. I don't, because right now it should be way, way higher than what it is. Like it's crazy thinking about all the uses and that, they're trading paper contracts at, 32 whatever an ounce. It's like that's crazy low. And still that's like doubled from when I started stacking, more if you count the premiums. And the market's just a weird place. Like I talked to like local shops and stuff, and they're very wary about price jumps. They're afraid that it's going to shoot down. They're afraid that it's going to shoot up. So it's just very interesting, the whole retail market on that side.
Well, and in regards to the BRICS, I think it's interesting. The Russian central bank um, is now buying silver to put into its strategic reserves. It won't have to take, in my opinion, too many governments to decide to start doing that, and for there to be a serious supply crunch. And if they just decide to go diamond hands on it, and they get a lot,
Mm.
um, I think what we could see if nothing happens with our commodities exchange and it just keeps trucking along like normal, um, with its weekly activities being really damaging to the price. I think at some point, the arbitrage will just get totally out of control, where like almost all of the silver will be leaving the Western Hemisphere to go to places that'll pay more for it.
Mhm.
And what you were talking about with the premiums might also decide to just decouple to a point where it's not even recognizable. Like
Yeah. We're
our chart says silver's worth, who knows, maybe the commodities exchange is claiming it's worth 30 cents or something, but no one will sell it to you for less than $120.
yeah.
Some just a crazy decoupling of like people are like, we don't worry about what that paper price says anymore. We just ignore it.
Mhm. Yeah, I can definitely see that. And, we already are kind of seeing that to a small extent with the premiums, like how much they've jumped in the past, 10 years or whatever. Um, I think ideally I'd like to try and spread the word to people because it seems like going again onto the schizo thing, I think there's like an anti-silver campaign that is like active. I've noticed when gold and silver have kind of spiked up recently with the tariffs and whatnot, especially last month on social media, I saw a bunch of accounts that seem like astroturf that are coming in and talking about silver, but like in a weird way. Like I think there's a lot of bizarre stuff going on behind the scenes, which that'll have to be like another episode in itself. I got to look into that more, but it's just like weird stuff surrounding this, and it's like a very narrow street. Like you kind of see everybody, but then there's weird people in the bushes doing shady stuff. Uh, I
I
don't know.
wouldn't want to be a bush person.
No,
Having to
no.
work in the bush all day.
Yeah, in the bush, manipulating markets, pulling strings, like doing weird stuff, puppeteering. You see marionettes everywhere. It's a bizarre thing, the silver market. But we have been going for like an hour and a half. I know this is a longer one, but I know we've kind of been all over the place. But yeah, I guess of the whole, like I guess everything we've talked about, which has been literally all over the world. I guess closing thoughts or any things you guys want to talk about to kind of close it out?
Mine is definitely that the gold better be there.
Yeah,
Really
I
hope the
agree.
gold is there.
I
Yeah, me
agree.
as well. I think it will be, even if they have to borrow it from one of the other locations. I think the gold will be there.
Yeah, I think I agree with that assessment. They're
Yeah,
not going to let the gold not be there.
yeah. I think there's gotta, whether it's the full amount or whether it's even more that we like somehow stole from someone, the Germans in World War II, who knows, where it's not on the books. I think the government is smart enough where it's like, okay, we're gonna keep this here, and but it's just the fact that there hasn't been a proper audit where they have even tested the bars or assayed them properly. Um,
Yeah,
that
it's crazy.
that's just
They need to
crazy.
see what we need to see is everything in there ran over a strong magnet, then all of it get ran over an XRF or a Sigma or something along those lines. And then I wouldn't be a fan of drilling into too many of them or
Mhm.
melting them. But 1 to 2% of them doing that. And I saw a thing on the Doge News on X that was saying, oh, if a certain whatever it was, 100 people who respond to this will get selected to go inside or something.
Oh,
Um, I don't know if that handle is actually affiliated with Doge or not, but
Yeah,
it would be great to go engage in checking those bars with you gentlemen. If you
yeah,
wanted to link this video to that, I could
yeah,
send you the comment. Maybe we'll be part of history.
that'd
yeah.
be
Uh,
fun.
Please do so. I'm sure after they listen to this whole video, they'll be like, "Yeah, these are the guys. Send them."
Yes, we are your boys. We are the grassroots Americans that would be happy to come in and verify exactly what is in there.
Yes, absolutely. Elon Musk, or if you work for Doge, you work for any of that. If you're watching this, hit me up on Twitter or X. Um, and like, well, I will go. Like, we will all go. It'll be a good time. Beach party, all of that. So,
It'll be
Yeah,
great. Yes, it'll bring comfort to the American people that you selected some grassroots individuals. Um, Thank you so much for having me on. I was honored to meet you, Colin, and honored to be on your show. And I look forward to our next conversation.
yeah,
it's good to
yeah.
meet you too, Brian.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys this is the first one where I've had with the bullion banter that I've had two people on. I know we were kind of talking big topics, so it's kind of all over the place, but Fort Knox, China, my schizo rants and weird conspiracy theories. So everybody, yeah, check out Mountain Bullion. I will link his YouTube channel and whatnot in the description and his Twitter and all of that. So check that out. And like the video if you enjoyed this. If you are still watching to this point, um, I will be doing a silver giveaway at 1,000 subscribers. So uh, I don't know. I'll figure out something, but the code word will be Fort Knox, LOL. Just keep that in mind. That'll help you out somehow. Um, all right. Thank you guys for being on. Thank you, audience, if you're still listening. Probably the 4% of you that are still listening at this point. You are the best. Like, comment, share with your friends, and we definitely should try and go to Fort Knox. That's my closing statement.
That's a really good idea.
Yeah, we should get with Doge.
Heck yeah, boys.
I'll link this video to that their thing or email it
Link
to
it,
them.
and then I'll link it too. So hopefully that'll increase the chances of them seeing it.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, well,
All right.
thanks for being on, guys.
See you later.
All
Have
right. Have a
a
good
good
night,
one.
everybody, or good day, whatever time it is, and Salome.